fair warning, gamers, before watching this video, you should go watch my and Moveset video, because this video, like, is kind of based off that. This is the Moveset expansion. I will talk about what her stage, spirits, and stuff could be, but it only makes sense, at least part of it only makes sense if you watch the original video, and you should watch it anyways, because it's a banger video. Also, this video and the original Moveset have Amphibia spoilers, so be aware of those. Moving on. Welcome everybody to the and Boonjoy Moveset expansion. This is out a few days later than it should be. Usually I like to release expansions the day of or the day after, but you know, the Monday after is close enough. Sorry about that. It took longer than I expected because I'm trying to make this real high quality, you know? I think it's going to be a lot better than previous Moveset expansions. Because I got some new assets and some new stuff, and it's going to be less crappy. So let's just get into it with what her stage would be. Her stage would, of course, be called Wartwood, as you would be likely to expect. It would start at the planter's house, and then it'd scroll through Wartwood, similar to Pac-Land. There'd be a bunch of, you know, Wartwood buildings in the background, like the Grub and Go and Stumpy's... What is Stumpy's? I think Stumpy's restaurant is just called Stumpy's. There'd be characters in the background, like Wally would be playing his accordion, and then Stumpy would be... Stumpy. I keep referring to Stumpy. There'd be just a few random things to interact with, like there'd be the statue. The statue would probably be tangible. You know, there'd be ponds to fall in, there'd be buildings to walk on top of, all of that sort of stuff. It'd be similar to Pac-Land. And then at the end, it'd scroll over to the slow to accept, even slower to respect sign at the start of Wartwood. Sprig and Polly would not actually be there. This is just the only image I could find of it. Ignore Sprig and Polly right there. But yes, you would go to the beginning of Wartwood, and then you would be kind of loop back to the planter's house. Maybe there'd be like a bunch of pink, blue, and green magic, and then you get back to the planter house. I'm not sure how that would work, but who knows? I'm just the one coming up with the ideas, not coming up with how to make them work. I could include Toad Tower and Utopia, or maybe I should just make the stage in Utopia, but I don't know. I kind of like just nice, humble Wartwood. No Toad Tower, no warping to Utopia, none of that. For her music, these are just some ideas of what her music could be. There might be others, some of these might be bad ideas. I can't be bothered to listen to every Amphibia song. These are just some ideas I think would be good. Now, if you're wondering why these songs are like green, red, and yellow, green means it would need to be remixed. Red means it should not be remixed. And yellow means it could work either way, remixed or not. First, we have No Big Deal, and it's there twice because I think it would be cool remixed and not remixed. You know? The intro song, Hop, Pop, and Lock Dance Battle. I don't know if that's the official name for the track, but that song that plays when Hop Pop's doing the dance battle. We got Fly to the Moth, Fly to the Mod. What is that supposed to mean? Hard Work Montage, slow down, talk slower. Marcy's theme, Heart Stomper, They're Here, Get In, Get the Box, Save Marcy. Got it? That is the full name of the song, according to this YouTube video I found. And it would only need to be made longer, not actually remixed. Tension Increases and Steps In. These are some weird song names now that I'm reading them out loud. One Last Hurrah and A Life Fully Lived. Now, if you are curious what any of these songs sound like, I have a playlist linked in the description to all 12 of these songs. So if you want to listen to any of them, and go see if you think they should actually be remixed, or nah, that's fine if it's not remixed. If you want to go do that, then there's a link to that playlist in the description. Now, some ideas for Mii Costumes. If Anne were to theoretically be made a Mii costume instead of a fighter, she would be, of course, her sword fighter with her fancy little sword. Maybe she could include a No Big Deal remix, maybe not, but anyway, we have Anne as a sword fighter, Sprig as a gunner with his slingshot, Marcy, a gunner with her crossbow arm. Sasha would, of course, be a sword fighter, and Andreas would be both brawler and sword fighter compatible. It'd be weird seeing small Andreas with his flaming sword. His flaming sword would not be that big. It'd be like the size of a beam sword or something. And Sprig and Andreas, I feel like they should be like a full mask instead of just Sprig's hat or Andreas's crown. Because if they're a full mask, then you actually get the effect of their face, because they've got a very specific face shape and color, because you can't make Mii's skin pink or blue. So it would have to be an Andreas and Sprig mask, not a Sprig and Andreas hat or crown. I think it'd be better that way. Now, for the classic mode, I'm doing this a lot different than I did last time. In the previous expansions, moveset expansions, I just said what their classic mode name would be. But I've looked into it a lot, and every classic mode name actually relates to the fighters they fight in that classic mode. And every classic mode has like a theme of fighters. I thought it was just they fought people who represented characters from their game, but I looked into it and that's totally wrong. I think Sora fights a bunch of dark characters like Dark Link and Dark Pit and stuff. It's all themed around something. So Anne's route is called Animal Pal Brawl, which of course means she will be fighting human-animal duos, which I know there's not a lot of in Smash, but just hold on here. We got Mario and Donkey Kong, Animal Crossing Villager. I can just say Villager. Villager and Isabelle, Luigi and Yoshi, which I know isn't like an iconic combo, so maybe she could just fight Mario and Yoshi. Then again, I don't think there's anything wrong with using Mario twice, so maybe she'd fight Mario and Yoshi instead. Not she, they, because there's Anne and Sprig. I should specify, this fighter is not named Anne. The fighter is named, like, if you go to the character select screen, there's like Terry, Byleth, Sora, and then Spran. Not Anne, Spran, because they're both of them. There's just both of them. Pokemon trainer, of course, with him and his Pokemon. Ness. Okay, let me explain this. We have Ness and 5 of these flying men costume guys. Flying men are these bird guys that accompany Ness in Earthbound. There's 5 of them in the game, hence why there's 5 of them in the classic mode route. And before you comment that they're flying men and not animals, the wiki clearly states that they are a species of bird-like creatures, which is close enough to being an animal for me. Next we have Shulk and Nia. My notes here say Rex and Nia because, as I need to specify, I know Rex has a Mii, and it would be a lot more sense if it was Rex and Nia, because, like, they're in the game together. Shulk and Nia are not in the same game, but Rex and Nia are. But Rex's Mii fighter is DLC, so I couldn't use it for this. So we're going with Shulk and Nia. Nia's not even really an animal. I'm doing the best I can here, but you try thinking of animal-human duos in Smash Bros. We've got the bonus game, and then a fight against Rathalos. And again, I know there's a Monster Hunter Mii costume, but first of all, it's DLC, and second of all, they're not really a duo, except in the sense that one of them's trying to kill the other. Everyone else is duo in the sense that they're friends, or close enough to it. Mario and Donkey Kong fight a lot. Isabelle helps Tom Nook extort Villager out of all his funds. Luigi would just jump off Yoshi's back in any moment. Pokemon Trainer, it really depends on the trainer. I think Ness is actually pretty nice to the flying men, but I don't know for sure. I haven't played Earthbound. And Shulk and Nia literally have never met. So maybe they don't all have the best friendships anyway. Moving on, we have these spirits. Starting with Miss Croaker. As you can see, the spirit screen has been updated excessively since the last Moveset expansion. It's not just a slide with a color background and oh, it was awful. It was awful. This is a lot better. First, we have Miss Croaker, represented by a light green Greninja with a little dark Kirby as an ally, representing Archie, of course. The enemy's physical attacks are slightly powered up because Miss Croaker is an absolute beast who destroys you. This stage would be battlefield version of Wartwood. After you manage to win her fight, you of course get her spirit. She is a 1-star support spirit that takes up 1 support slot, and her ability is Water Attack Up, which slightly ups the power of water attacks because, you know, she's a frog, and that's how these things work. Next we have Chuck. I really like this fight. You fight against Green Greninja. On the Tulip stage, there was a rule where the item tulips will spawn. You will start the battle with your head growing tulips. When the enemy hits you, your head has a chance to grow more tulips, and the enemy is always growing tulips on their head. But it's his thing. He grows tulips. And when you beat him, you get his ability Tulip Grower. There is a small chance to make opponent's head grow tulips when you hit them. He's a 1-star support spirit that takes up 1 support slot. Next, we have Stumpy, represented by a green and brown Wario. Oh my gosh, it's not someone who could use Greninja. I had to use Greninja because, you know, Greninja's a frog, and they're frogs. Whatever. It'd be on the Wartwood stage. Item, food. Another item, battering items. A lot of those items would spawn. Eating food would make the enemy slightly stronger. The enemy's battering items are powered up, and the enemy gets a hammer at high damage, because it's like Stumpy switches out his hands, like for other things made out of his bones. And so when he gets to high damage, he's like, alright, time to pull out the big guns, and then he puts on his hammer hand. That's what that's supposed to represent. You see what I'm getting at here? You see what I'm getting at? Maybe that's a little hard for a novice spirit, though. Speaking of which, he is a novice support spirit that takes up 1 support slot, and his ability is battering items power up. He will slightly up the power of battering items. Next, I believe we have our first advanced. Yeah, our first advanced spirit, Frobo. He would, of course, be represented by Rob and have a little Kirby as his ally. Kirby, of course, representing his best friend, Polly. There are two rules of explosives and shooting items. A lot of those items would spawn. The battle would take place on the Wartwood battlefield version. Reinforcements would appear upon the enemy being KO'd. So, like, when you KO Rob, he'd be replaced with Pink Rob. And Pink Rob is like Frobo 2.0. You know, like in All-In when Polly makes him pink and stuff. And the enemy has super armor and is hard to launch. His ability is shooting an explosion attack up, because, you know, he's a missile boy. He fires a lot of missiles. It's something he does a lot. He is a 2-star support spirit that takes up 1 support slot. Next up, we've got Hot Pop and Polly, who I really wanted to make an ace, but they're just an advanced, which makes me really sad. But I have a lot of ace spirits coming up here, so I decided to make these guys an advanced spirit. They're represented by a Red Greninja and a Kirby, and the battle is no frills, and it takes place on the Wartwood stage. Their ability is pretty simple. Jump up, they just increase your jump height. They're a 2-star support spirit with 1 support slot. That takes up 1 support slot, I should say. Next we have the Core, represented by a dark Kirby, and with a blue Greninja ally. That Greninja starts out giant and with a beam sword, obviously representing Andreas. The main enemy doesn't like to attack, because, you know, the Core isn't exactly good at attacking, and you only have to defeat the main fighter to win. However, you might have noticed that little rule over there. When Kirby, representing the Core, gets to high damage, or when Andreas, represented by Greninja, is defeated, when one of those two things happen, the Moon Assist Trophy will spawn, as a reference to how, as a last gambit, the Core takes over the moon and crashes it down to Earth. I think that's funny. Now, the Core is a 2-star primary spirit shield type, and it has 2 support slots, and it can be enhanced at level 99. And it, of course, gets enhanced into Darcy, who's an ace spirit, still primary, shield type, 2 support slots. And I couldn't really think of an ability for her, so I just didn't give her an ability. There's actually a ton of primary spirits in the game without an ability, so this makes sense. She's not a very useful spirit, though, let's be honest. But it's Darcy. Can't complain about Darcy. Anyways, next we have Andreas, represented by a giant Greninja that, of course, starts with a beam sword. You only have to defeat the main fighter to win, and it takes place on the Castlevania battlefield version, which, by the way, so does the last battle. I didn't mention that, but both Core and Andreas take place on Dracula's castle, because it's the only castle stage, and Andreas is king and everything, blah, 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 blah. There's also 8 Robs as, like, allies, because, you know, they're like Frobots. They're the Frobots. They are not too terribly difficult to launch, but I wouldn't say they're one-shot either. He is an Ace Spirit primary attack type with no support slots. You know I had to do it. I couldn't give him any support slots. He's a friendless guy. His ability makes you giant with a beam sword equipped, which I know usually just making someone giant is an ace 3-star ability, so giant and beam sword is better, so it should be legend. But first of all, that's stupid. Second of all, I think the beam sword makes up for lack of support slots. I think it's cool, because, like, if you're giant and have the beam sword, you're like, you are Andreas. You have become Andreas. Anyways, Sasha! Represented by the fighter Spran, because, again, the fighter is not Anne. The fighter is Spran. That's the specific name for the fighter. And it is the 7th alt of Spran, which makes her wear Sasha's armor, and Sprig is orange in reference to Hot Pop. Not that Hot Pop is relevant whatsoever. But Anne has Sasha's armor on. And I know I used a PNG of Sasha, but we've gone over this before. You watched the Moveset video. You know why there's a PNG of Sasha, and I can't edit Sasha's armor onto Anne's body. There's also a green Greninja ally representing Grime. A lot of sword items will spawn, and earthquakes will periodically shake the stage. I don't know. I just thought earthquakes would be cool to have. The stage is the little tower portion of the New Super Mario Bros. U stage, if you know what I'm talking about. It would be Battlefield version, because the rotating platforms would be weird and inconvenient. So it's just the Battlefield version of the New Super Mario Bros. U tower, obviously representing Toad Tower. The enemy prefers sword attacks. The enemy has increased attack power, and Greninja starts with a hammer, representing Barrel's Warhammer. She would be an Ace Spirit primary attack type, and her ability would slightly increase all of your attack power. Not by that much. Forward smashes would go from like 18 to 20%, but it would affect everything, which I think is pretty cool. And she'd only have 2 support slots. Next we have Marcy. She would be represented by Spran in her 8th ult, which has Sprig wearing Polly's bow, which is cursed. But the most important part is that Anne would be wearing Marcy's armor. That's a pretty good way of representing Marcy if you ask me. She would have a pink and blue Greninja as her allies, representing Olivia and Yunnan. It takes place on the Saffron City? I think it's Saffron City. The battlefield version of Saffron City, representing Newtopia. And the enemy would start the battle with a boomerang, and the boomerang is meant to represent her crossbow arm. It's the best I could do, okay? There's no bow or crossbow item, so she's just getting a boomerang to represent her crossbow arm. The enemy has a hard time moving and trips a lot, and Pink Greninja starts with a Killing Edge, which a Killing Edge is the closest thing in the game there is to Yunnan's thingies. So that's what we're going with. For Marmar's ability that she grants you when you defeat her, I considered many things. I consider her making you resistance to elemental floors. Maybe you could hit more crits. I really like that idea. But in the end, I settled on Marmar being an Ace Spirit primary grab type, who makes you more likely to trip. I mean, come on! Enderman is a 3-star spirit that gives you a weakness to water. I can have Marcy be a 3-star spirit that makes you more likely to trip. It's accurate, isn't it? She would also have 3 support slots. Next up is Sprig, obviously represented by Spran, because half of Spran is Sprig. That's where the Spra comes from. Spra and Spran. Sprig is the Spra and Spran. It would take place on the Wartwood stage. The enemy would like to move and jump a lot, because, that's how Sprig works. The enemy has increased jump power, and the enemy prefers certain moves, which would obviously be the moves involving Sprig. Side special, where Sprig fires a slingshot. Grab, where Sprig grabs them. Back throw, where Sprig throws them back. All the aerials, except forward air, involve Sprig. And the final smash involves Sprig, and the up special. I think that's all the Sprig moves, but correct me if I'm wrong. Sprig would be a 3-star primary grab type. His ability would make you lightweight, making you a lot easier for you to jump and move around. He'd be super fast and stuff. And he would have 3 support slots. Finally, for the legendary spirit of the bunch, we have the Calamity Trio, represented by Spran's 1st, 7th, and 8th ult, obviously representing Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. I mean, one of them literally is Anne. The other 2 are Anne just wearing Sasha and Marcy's armor. You have to defeat all 3 fighters to win. The enemy will suddenly get their final smashes, and all the enemies have an extra jump, because why not? It takes place on the Final Destination stage. Oh, I'd like to see you try to beat this battle. This battle would be really tough. But if you do somehow manage to beat it, you would be awarded with the legendary support spirit that grants you critical health final smash. You would get your final smash when you reach a high damage percent, which I think that's a really good ability. It's never been in the game before, but I think it would work really well. And they would, of course, take up 2 support slots. As a quick spirit recap, we got the little spirit board here with Miss Croaker, Chuck, Stumpy, Frobo, the Core, King Andrea, Sasha, Marcy, Sprig, Hop-Up and Polly, and the Calamity Trio. The last little bit of stuff we got here, the series logo would be Anne's shoe. I debated a lot of things, maybe a Calamity Stone. I think a Calamity Stone would work really well too, but I ultimately settled on Anne's shoe because that's funny. And their boxing ring title would be Rebel Kids Against the World. Is it wrong? Nope. I love it. And that should be all for the Spran moveset. Here's a quick little overview of everything we covered today. Thank you for watching, gamers. I'm really glad you watched this video because I think it's good. I want Anne and Spran, not Anne, Spran. Words are hard. I want them in Smash, but they're not going to be in Smash. But it would be funny, and I enjoyed making this moveset, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. For now, gamers, this has been Flaming Game 7. Make sure to like and subscribe, and remember, kids, eat your green vegetables. Also, here's a quick little credit slide for people who are awesome. Also, honorable mentions to Matt Brally for creating the masterpiece of Amphibia, and one of my friends for introducing it to me. Okay, bye!